The excruciating pain in my lower body suddenly vanished, replaced by the familiar yet distant sound of horse hooves. I had actually returned to the horse farm where I worked in my previous life. Looking around, I noticed a scene I had missed in my past life. A woman of striking beauty, her eyes brimming with tears, was stubbornly driving a hairpin deep into a horse's belly. The swiftness of the action left me no time to cry out in warning. The wounded horse, stung by pain, suddenly reared up on its hind legs and fled from the woman with a shrill whinny. The young masters and misses scattered in all directions. Only one man pushed against the fleeing crowd, charging toward the woman instead. Chinghan, Chinghan, don't be afraid, I'm coming to save you. In my past life, it was to save him that I became half-crippled, never able to walk properly again. Later, the matchmaker arrived at my door with a grand procession. Only then did I learn that he was none other than the newly appointed Tanhua Lang by the emperor himself, Sun Jiayu. In gratitude, he redeemed my indenture from the horse farm and petitioned the emperor to marry me. On the day he came to propose, he half knelt before me and solemnly declared, "Hanhe, you saved my life. From this day forward, I shall honor and protect you, granting you a lifetime of peace and prosperity in return." All in the capital marveled at his noble righteousness, praising his lofty virtue and moral integrity. But only I knew that after marriage, he spent a fortune to buy that pomegranate red jewelry set, just to bring a smile to his beloved lady's face. I painstakingly learned how to make those honey-glazed pastries, and he was utterly delighted after tasting them. So I rose before dawn to simmer patiently mixing cane syrup with honey, shaping each piece into jasmine blossoms. I toiled for hours without eating a single grain of rice. As a result, he picked up the food box and turned to knock on the Prime Minister's door. I silently accepted it. I knew he married me only out of gratitude, so I never dared to hope for love. All I ask for is mutual respect, until the day I give birth. Sun Jiayu pinched my chin and poured a bowl of debilitating medicine down my throat. If it weren't for you, I could have saved Chinghan. She wouldn't have had her beauty marred, shouldn't have been depressed all day because of it. She could have been my lifelong companion. All of this happened because you meddled and saved me. Only then did I realize how much he hated me. Heaven took pity and gave me a chance to start over. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. A horse suddenly charged past Sun Jiayu, nearly knocking him down. His feet grew hesitant as he looked around, seemingly searching for help. I pretended to rush anxiously into the horse enclosure, only to be accidentally knocked flying by a charging horse. A long, bloody gash appeared on my leg. Through the pain, I spotted someone approaching and closed my eyes in feigned unconsciousness with relief. Since Sun Jiayu wants to play the hero, let him have his way. A familiar voice shouted not far away. Damn these useless servants. What kind of duty are they performing, letting my son get hurt and fall unconscious? Every last one of you is worthless. I'll have you all arrested and beaten with the rod, flogged to death. Who's on duty at the stables today? I'm going to strangle that little bastard. The small, flailing figure was none other than Sun Jiayu's elderly mother. When she saw the bloody gash on my leg, even her stream of curses came to an abrupt halt. In my past life, Mother Sun had always believed her pride and joy of a son marrying me was the greatest blessing. A lowly horse-taming woman, incapable of labor, perhaps even barren, she wanted Sun Jiayu to divorce me and marry some noblewoman. But Sun Jiayu refused, so she could only torment me in new ways each day. Occasionally, when I could bear it no longer, I would swallow my pride and plead with Sun Jiayu, but he just sighed and said, "Hanhe, given how you are now, it's no wonder my mother has some dissatisfaction. She worked hard alone to raise me into the man I am today. It hasn't been easy for her. Could you just bear with it for my sake, please? But I never asked to come to this Sun residence. I came against my will, yet I've been diligent in doing my utmost to manage everything. Why must I still endure such humiliation?" Gathering my thoughts, while she was still stunned, I struggled to rise and fell to the ground. Crawling to her feet, "Madam, it's my fault. It's all my fault." The young master fought desperately to rush inside. In my haste, I was accidentally injured and failed to stop him. "It's my fault for being useless." Madam Sun snapped back to reality, her face flushed red as she pointed at me, her thick fingers jabbing at my forehead repeatedly. "You wretched maid, you just can't stand seeing noble lords living better than a lowly servant like you. So you deliberately harm them, deliberately harm my son. I say this whole disturbance was stirred up by you worthless slaves. You envy our good life, so you must harm us." The surrounding crowd began murmuring, saying that this horse track had never had an accident before, and today's incident was truly bizarre. No one could fathom the reason. Just as Madam Sun was about to make another accusation, a physician hurried in from outside to report, He said Sun Jiayu's facial injuries were external wounds that, if treated properly, wouldn't easily scar, nothing too serious. The real concern was his right hand, which appeared to have been trampled by the horse more than once. To restore things as they were is harder than ascending to the heavens. Mother-son immediately forgot about me and rushed frantically to another chamber. Before long, her wails of despair could be heard. My son, my poor, unfortunate son. The hands that wrote such fine essays are ruined, what are we to do now? The wailing was so piercing that if I hadn't heard the latter part, I would have thought Sun Jiayu had already passed away next door. To drown out his mother's cries, Sun Jiayu had to raise his voice in response. Mother, mother, stop crying. Though I injured my hand, I saved Qinghan. I risked my life to save her, she'll be grateful to me. Even if there's nothing, it's been worth it. Mother, I did all this willingly. Madame Sun shrieked sharply, a concubine-born daughter. The subsequent sounds were abruptly muffled, as if someone had covered her mouth. The Prime Minister's residence, a concubine-born daughter. The dynasty had two chancellors, one surnamed Zhai and the other Qi. The Zhai family had only one legitimate daughter. As for the Qi residence, there was an eldest daughter born of a concubine, a fact people tacitly understood whenever she was mentioned. So it turned out that Sun Jiayu had devoted 2 lifetimes of heartfelt effort, all for that chancellor's illegitimate eldest daughter, Qi Qinghan. It was also that day at the racetrack when a hairpin stabbed into the horse's belly, making her the culprit behind this chaos. Yet I distinctly remember her staring fixedly in another direction amid the turmoil, as if stubbornly waiting for someone to arrive. Sun Jiayu was not the one she had been hoping for. A maidservant overheard the commotion from the mother and son next door and whispered, Qinghan, that illegitimate daughter of Minister Qi's family. Wasn't she involved with the crown prince? The words were abruptly cut off. There are many distinguished guests today, mind your tongue. Suddenly I remembered, in my past life, I'd heard a woman from the ministerial household had taken her own life. That very day, I had been exchanging wedding vows with Sun Jiayu. At the same time, an imperial decree arrived from the palace, setting the date for the daughter of General Zhengyong to become the crown princess. Qi Qinghan's position was awkward. Perhaps she wanted to fight for a legitimate and promising future for herself. On the day of the crown prince's grand wedding, seeing her years of efforts come to nothing, she fell into despair and hanged herself. This made Sun Jiayu mistakenly believe she had taken her own life out of heartbreak over his marriage. I suspect that Sun Jiayu, born of humble origins, never truly caught Qi Qinghan's eye at most. His striking good looks as the third-ranked scholar might have earned him a fleeting glance or two from the Prime Minister's daughter. Today at the horse grounds, the Crown Prince was likely present as well. Qi Qinghan was willing to gamble with the lives of everyone present just to test her standing in the Crown Prince's heart. Such shallow cruelty. Forget it. In my past life, I saved Sun Jiayu out of kindness, only to bring disaster upon myself. In this life, I no longer wish to have any dealings with these important figures. To demonstrate his appreciation for talent, the Prime Minister of Qi allowed his daughter to frequently visit the Sun residence. Qi Qinghan was followed by a retinue of maids and servants. She would stand conspicuously at the gate for a while, then have a loud-voiced servant step forward to announce their arrival. Young Master Sun, Madam, our Miss Qi has come to visit you. The fanfare was just as grand as in my previous life. When Sun Jiayu had showered me with excessive warmth under the guise of repaying kindness, Qi Qinghan's beauty was among the finest in the capital. When Sun Jiayu was still a poor scholar, he once quarreled with a bookstore owner over payment issues. It so happened that Qi Qinghan was passing by and, invoking her status as the daughter of the Prime Minister, ordered the shopkeeper to settle his debt. From then on, Sun Jiayu became utterly infatuated with her. In my previous life, it wasn't until the very end that I learned Qi Qinghan had injured her face during the equestrian accident that day, leaving a deep scar. Sun Jiayu visited her several times, but was always turned away at the door. No one had ever told him about the ambiguous relationship between Qi Qinghan and the Crown Prince. Thus, he could only attribute his missed chance with his beloved entirely to me. Now, his right hand was beyond recovery. In the future, even holding a cup or chopsticks would likely be difficult, let alone writing or painting for extended periods. But for him, having his beloved constantly by his side would make him willing to give up even his life. What was a mere arm in comparison? Though my leg injury looked ghastly, it wasn't actually much of a hindrance, and within a few days, I could already walk the streets. I spent nearly all my savings to buy back my indenture from the horse farm, alone. I set off for the Wanji Hall in the capital. Who would have thought that Madame Sun would come looking for trouble with me, following the scent like a bloodhound? Wanjitang was a miraculous place, gathering numerous skilled and divine physicians. Most importantly, if the poor came seeking treatment, they would never charge a single penny. In my previous life, after marrying into the Sun residence, I once sent a maid to Wanjatang to seek medical advice. Wanting to ask whether I could still bear children, at that time, I thought that Sun Jiayu was willing to marry me, at least ensuring me a worry-free life with food and clothing for the rest of my days. I had no other skills left, and giving him a child was the least I could do as his wife. The doctor was summoned, but Mother Sun was utterly displeased. She's nothing but a useless cripple now. What's the point of treating her? Don't even think about swindling us for consultation fees. If you want children, my son can always take concubines or remarry later. The physician looked at me and understood the situation perfectly. Thus, though I couldn't be considered destitute, Wanji Hall still promised to waive the consultation fee. Only then did Mother Sun reluctantly allow them to enter. The female physician examined my injuries carefully and said, "The young lady's womb remains unharmed. However, to ensure a smooth delivery, acupuncture must be administered every other day as a precaution." Day after day, I gradually became familiar with her. During casual conversations, she learned the origin of my injuries. After hearing this, she remained silent for a long while before asking me, "You were a horse trainer before, does that mean you know veterinary medicine?" I replied, "The work at the stables was complex, so naturally I learned some of it." She said that while veterinary medicine differs greatly from human medicine, the former requires a broader range of interdisciplinary knowledge, and there are aspects where one can draw parallels between the two. If a veterinarian wanted to study human medicine, they would find it much easier than others. But by then, I no longer held any expectations for myself. I merely allowed myself a fleeting moment of longing, following the thread of her words, overlooking the unspoken implications within. So in this lifetime, I want to fulfill that fleeting dream from my past life. I want to save more lives struggling in suffering. Even if there's only a glimmer of hope, I'll help them unravel it thread by thread and expose it to the sunlight. I think this is also the best response to the suffering I endured in my past life. On my way to Wanji Hall, I stopped by a pawn shop to exchange some jewelry for silver. Passing by a silver shop, I saw Qi Qinghan pointing at the storefront and saying to Sun Jiayu beside her, "This shop is one of the dowries my mother prepared for me. Brother Jiayu, since your hand may never fully recover, why not come here and work the abacus instead? I'll have the shopkeeper assign you a bookkeeping assistant, so it won't put too much strain on your hands." I couldn't help but chuckle softly when I heard this. According to our dynasty's regulations, a Tanhua, third-ranked scholar, can at least become a seventh-rank Hanlin Academy compiler, for the daughter of a prime minister's household to repay kindness. There are countless ways to do so. Did she have Sun Jiayu do the abacus work instead? Perhaps she merely wanted the world to know, at the lowest cost, that she was not an ungrateful person. As long as Sun Jiayu kept accounts in the attic for a day, people would praise Miss Qi for her reason and gratitude. Just as Sun Jiayu had chosen to marry me in the previous life, should he offer real gold and silver, or keep a wife at home who can't even step outside? He knew perfectly well which was the better deal. Looking at it this way, he really had the fortunate destiny of a master accountant. Qi Qinghan's perfunctory attitude towards Sun Jiayu was written all over her face, yet that infatuated fool remained utterly oblivious. "No, Qinghan, how could I possibly embarrass you in such a common marketplace? Don't worry, I'm the Tanhua scholar personally selected by His Majesty. I'll definitely rely on my own abilities to give you a good life." Though Qi Qinghan's face already showed impatience, he remained completely unaware. With his single-minded way of dealing with people, if not for his handsome looks, the title of Tanhua, third-place scholar, might never have fallen to him. In such circumstances, if he still wanted to secure a good livelihood by his own efforts, it would only make things even harder. Wanjatang provided food and lodging, but it was certainly no place for idlers. Any apprentice deemed lacking the talent for this profession would be mercilessly dismissed. Every apprentice who enters the Hall of Universal Healing must follow their master's instruction for more than 6 hours each day. They must rise before dawn to recite medical texts. After a simple breakfast, they continue their studies under the teacher's guidance. Some days are spent learning to identify medicinal herbs, while others involve accompanying the master on patient visits. Rushing about from dawn till dusk, often too busy to even take a sip of water, since Wanji Hall's ironclad rule was to treat the poor without charging consultation fees. Most of those who came for treatment were truly penniless. Staying at the hall wouldn't earn one much money. Most apprentices aimed to resign after completing their training to make a living as ordinary physicians, to be an itinerant bell-ringing physician roaming the land, or to open a medical clinic and herbal pharmacy. As for those willing to stay long-term, some are like me, holding private obsessions not to be spoken of to outsiders. Others are those already free from material concerns who simply love the medical arts. Take Qingxia, for example. She claimed to hail from the deep mountains, born with the gift of recognizing all herbs, the household didn't lack her as a laborer, so they granted her wish, letting her go to the city to further her studies at Wanji Hall. Qingxia had studied under her master for a long time and was now in charge of purchasing medicinal herbs for the entire Wanji Hall. Not only did she have a keen eye for quality, but she was also quite the smooth talker. One day, Mother's son somehow got wind of my whereabouts and actually came to the entrance of Wanji Hall, planting her hands on her hips and shouting curses. That maid called Hanhe used to be a horse trainer, reeking of horse dung. How can you stand the filth of having her do healing work? She refused to save my son that day. She's a heartless wretch who'll end up killing you all with her treatments. Qingxia, who had been drying herbs with me, rolled up her sleeves and charged out when she heard the commotion. Well, if it isn't the famous mother of the Imperial Examination's third-place scholar, your son's talent reaches the skies. Yet as his mother, how can you be so vulgar? What a disgrace to your son's reputation. Weren't you busy these days disciplining your future daughter-in-law at home, going around saying how that girl became unclean when your son rescued her by touching her, that she'll be a son in life and a son ghost in death, and must bear you at least 3 grandsons? What's wrong? Did your future daughter-in-law run away? So today you've got time to make trouble elsewhere. Is that it? Don't you even see what kind of place this is? With a wave of Qingxia's large hand, several young medicine apprentices immediately came out wielding brooms and chased Madam's son 3 paces beyond the entrance of Wanji Hall. She returned triumphantly, and I respectfully poured her a cup of tea while praising her. After all, it's you, sharp in taste, even sharper in gathering news. She drained the tea in one gulp and said, that Mrs. Sun has harassed the eldest Miss Chi to the point where she refuses to visit anymore. Her son blames her at home. But she can't vent her anger on her own beloved child. After much deliberation, the only soft target she can squeeze is you, the one remotely involved. If she dares to come again, I'll keep cursing her. If I'm not here, have those 2 boys drive her away. We're not afraid of her. I nodded. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, having someone stand up for me made my heart ache fiercely. But Hanhe, won't you regret it? Regret what? Regret not saving that imperial scholar that day. Had it been you who rescued him, you might well be an official's wife by now. I smiled and replied, to each their own ambition. Being confined to domestic life is not my wish. What I'm doing now is precisely what will ensure I have no regrets about my future. The weather was gradually growing sultry. After several heavy rains, an epidemic broke out in the outskirts of the capital and gradually spread to the city proper. I followed my master around to treat patients. But at the porridge distribution site in the city, I saw Qi Qinghan standing shoulder to shoulder with a man. My master said, that's the Crown Prince. I heard he specially requested an imperial decree to personally participate in disaster relief. The 2 were seen behaving intimately, their gazes entwined. Anyone with eyes could see what was going on, yet out of fear for the Eastern Palace and the Prime Minister's residence, no one would dare bring the matter before Sun Jiayu. Speaking of Sun Jiayu, Qingxia told me he had recently found work as a ghostwriter for official correspondence. The shopkeeper, taking pity on his circumstances, offered him a decent wage without demanding speed or quantity. Yet somehow, one day he suddenly changed his mind. After much back and forth, Sun Jiayu ultimately swallowed his pride and entered Qi Qinghan's silver shop, truly becoming an abacus tapping accountant, though he could only be considered half an accountant due to his hand injury. The task of transcription still required an additional clerk to assist. The fellows envied him for earning the same wages as a proper accountant just by working the abacus, so they often slacked off. To avoid embarrassing Qi Qinghan, Sun Jiayu frequently had to work overtime alone. As time passed, the after effects of his injuries grew increasingly severe. The dual torment of body and mind made him crave Qi Qinghan's company all the more. Meanwhile, Qi Qinghan was preoccupied with using the porridge distribution as an excuse to cultivate her relationship with the Crown Prince. Having already endured enough humiliation from Sun's mother earlier, she had no intention of paying him any further attention. When Sun Jiayu received his first month's wages from the accounting office, he spent most of it on an exquisitely crafted hairpin, eagerly presenting it to his beloved as a treasure. To his surprise, Qi Qinghan completely ignored him. With a dismissive out of my way, she pushed past him. Sun Jiayu's hands lacked strength, and with that jostle, the hairpin fell to the ground, its delicate glass pendant shattering into pieces. He finally couldn't hold back his anger. Qi Qinghan, I saved your life and treated you with wholehearted devotion. What reason could you possibly have to despise me so? Everyone stopped their work, their gazes turning toward the pair. The young lady of the Prime Minister's household had never suffered such humiliation in public before, and immediately rebuked him in return. Have I not repaid your life-saving kindness? Everyone knows I cared for you until your wounds healed. and even found you many fine medicines. The hard-won accounting job you now have was only given to you by the silver shop out of respect for me. Otherwise, which family would take in someone like you? What more could you possibly want? Sun Jiayu, having his shortcomings exposed, flushed crimson. But, even so, between you and me, between us, you shouldn't have. Qi Qinghan sharply cut him off. What do you mean by lover? When did I ever agree to be your lover? Your mother shouted at me and spread rumors to ruin my reputation. I've already shown leniency by not holding it against you, yet you still have the audacity to bring it up. You came to save me of your own free will that day. I never begged you to rescue me. Do you expect me to repay you with my entire life? The onlookers murmured among themselves, all agreeing that Sun Jiayu was insatiably greedy, and that such a distinguished scholar could have such poor character. Sun Jiayu couldn't withstand the ridicule and fled in panic, only to trip over something and fall to the ground. When Qingxia told me about this part, even she couldn't help feeling some pity. After he fell, he couldn't even get up, and no one helped him. It was quite pitiful to see. But I shook my head and simply said softly, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." During the epidemic, even the newest apprentice at Wanji Hall was kept constantly on their feet. I followed my master on his rounds through the capital. When we couldn't make it back to the hall at night, we'd simply bed down on the floor in people's homes. One day, just after my master and I had fumigated ourselves with attractor loads and were preparing to rest, a young maid came rushing in. "Granny next door can't stop vomiting. Please come take a look." I let my elderly master rest and followed the little maid alone to check first. Unexpectedly, just 2 turns after stepping out, I saw a tall figure standing in the shadows. My heart sank. I turned to leave, but the little maid flashed a dagger. "Miss, please wait a moment. His Highness the Crown Prince merely wishes to speak with you." The Crown Prince emerged from the shadows and playfully raised a folding fan to lift my chin. I took a step back to avoid it, unfazed. He merely chuckled softly. "Han He, isn't it? Among all the new apprentices at Wanji Hall, you possess the highest natural talent and are also the most diligent. During this epidemic, you've devoted yourself wholeheartedly. The common folk all praise you for having a bodhisattva's compassionate heart." I replied with neither humility nor arrogance. Wanjitang's foremost duty is naturally to save lives and help the world. The Crown Prince took another step forward. The maid pressed against me from behind, leaving me no room to retreat. "That Qi family girl can't endure hardship. Her efforts only scratch the surface. She's not like Miss Hanhe here, who truly embodies integrity both inside and out, winning deep affection from the people. If you're willing to enter the Eastern Palace to serve, continuing to benefit the common folk in my name, upon success, I can grant you the position of secondary consort, ensuring a lifetime of wealth, honor, and distinguished comfort." The face before me gradually overlapped with Sun Jiayu's from my past life. How coincidental, he had said the same words to me back then. "I will revere and protect you, granting you a lifetime of peace and prosperity in return." How noble of them, promising women this and that, never bothering to ask if we even wanted it. It's as if without them, we couldn't have earned these things at all. In my past life, I once heard Sun Jiayu discussing with colleagues at home, saying that the supplies allocated by the imperial court were clearly enough for the disaster victims to receive 1 more coarse pancake and 1 more mixed grain bun per day, yet the porridge stations set up by the Crown Prince only served thin gruel day after day. So many people's 1 pancake, 1 bun, how much silver would that amount to? How many lives is it worth? When I remained silent for a long time, his expression grew even more intrigued. "Moreover, I'm aware that because of the incident at the racetrack, the Sun family has been causing you constant trouble. The woman young Master Sun admires has eyes only for me. If you're willing to stay by my side, I can grant you another favor. I'll make the Sun family grovel at your feet like dogs. For every insult they've ever hurled at you, I'll let you repay them tenfold. How does that sound?" His voice was low, like the seductive whisper of a fallen spirit from legend. But alas, I had long since resolved not to cling to any worldly grudges. My goal was steadfast and singular. "Your Highness, I must still decline." His expression finally darkened. "Aren't you afraid I might kill you right here?" I replied with certainty. "My reputation has already reached your Highness's ears, so it must be even more widely known among the common people. If I were to die here, or simply disappear, I fear even the authorities would find it difficult to avoid a thorough investigation. Your Highness is busy with disaster relief and distributing porridge. This humble woman dares not trouble you further." I was gambling. Why would the Crown Prince, who had always indulged in sensual pleasures, suddenly start caring about his public reputation, something he had never valued before? Why would he risk contracting the plague just to show his face in the streets, making sure everyone knew it was the Crown Prince himself serving porridge to the commoners? I have no knowledge of court intrigues, But I know that when something seems out of place, there must be a hidden reason. He must have encountered some trouble, forcing him to seek leverage different from what he had relied on before. Sure enough, his expression grew even darker, but he still waved his hand dismissively. I felt the oppressive presence pressing against my back vanish. Before leaving, he turned back and said to me, "You'll come to me eventually, through the collective efforts of many." The epidemic among the people was finally brought under control. With matters settled, I was able to return to my former routine of systematic study at the Wanji Hall. During this epidemic, my exhaustive efforts were witnessed by all. I gradually began to stand on my own and take charge. One day, I was in the backyard drying medicinal herbs. Qingxia came in mysteriously, saying there was a patient in the front hall and asked me to go see them. Without suspicion, I tied it up and went with my medicine box. To my surprise, the visitor turned out to be Sun Jiayu. I had long stopped paying attention to him, but even so, I couldn't help but freeze for a moment. The once dashing and elegant Tan Hualang now had a sickly pale complexion. With dark circles heavy beneath his eyes, his entire being exuded an air of dejection, a far cry from the graceful charm that had once captivated countless admirers with a single glance. Qingxia winked at me, and I immediately understood this girl was giving me the chance to vent my anger. I sighed quietly to myself, said nothing more, and set down the medicine chest to begin the examination. But Sun Jiayu suddenly spoke up. I remember you. You're the girl who tried to save me at the horse track that day and ended up getting hurt yourself. Truly as beautiful in heart as in appearance." Hearing this, I felt a wave of nausea. Qingxia said irritably, "Then the young master should also know that she has been constantly insulted and harassed by your mother. Now that you're here, shouldn't you apologize on your mother's behalf?" Sun Jiayu stammered, "I know this matter has nothing to do with the young lady. It's just that my mother and I have depended on each other since childhood. Her actions were rash, but they came from concern for me. I can't bear to reprimand her." I was left speechless. No one understood better than I how utterly submissive mother-son was to her son. If Sun Jiayu said no to something, how could her dear old mother possibly defy him? Perhaps he himself harbored resentment in his heart. I examined his injuries, clearly the result of neglecting proper medication while overexerting himself. If left untreated, it might affect the meridians throughout his entire right side. Calculating the treatment course and required medicine, I quoted a consultation fee. To my surprise, Sun Jiayu's expression suddenly changed. He stood up, flushed with anger, and rebuked me. "Everyone says Wanji Hall is a place for saving lives and helping the people. Yet you still insist on discussing such vulgar matters as consultation fees. I thought you were as beautiful inside as out, and considered befriending you would be nice. Who knew you'd be so two-faced? Saving me must have been for some ulterior motive." Hearing this, I was absolutely furious. But perhaps his visit to Wanji Hall wasn't really for medical treatment. Realizing Qi Qinghan's heart belonged to another, he probably just came looking for a backup option. I looked at him and said, Chapter 6, "It's true that Wanjitang provides free treatment for the poor, but you, young master, clearly aren't in such dire straits. Why are you asking Wanjitang to waive your consultation fee? Don't tell me your family is poor. Wanjitang knows the situation of every street and alley. During the epidemic, you still had the means to buy hairpins for young ladies. How is it that not long after, you suddenly have no money when it comes to us?" In the end, Sun Jiayu still didn't pay. The once refined scholar had his dignity crushed by life. He stormed out of the Wanjitang gate cursing and swearing. Qingxia told me that ever since the incident at the porridge kitchen, he had stubbornly quit his job at the silver shop to prove his resolve, but he couldn't find any other suitable work. That outfit he wears is probably his last shred of dignity. Even when his old mother caught the seasonal plague the other day, he couldn't bear to pawn his clothes. He still wears them every few days to loiter outside the Prime Minister's residence. Why not go every day? This light-colored fabric isn't stain-resistant. Doesn't it need frequent washing? The days I don't go out are naturally spent waiting for my clothes to dry. Hey, another month passed, and I was permitted to take the apprentice out alone for medical visits. What puzzled the young apprentice was my particular insistence on persuading some women to come study at Wanji Hall during our medical rounds. This action would sometimes be discovered, leading to dissatisfaction from the women's families. On several occasions when I went for follow-up visits, I was even turned away at the door. I didn't take offense, merely whispering to those women where nearby they could send me messages, if they were willing. They could contact me anytime to arrange their departure. At the same time, Wanjitang began receiving some valuable gifts of unknown origin, all specifically addressed to me. Knowing they came from the Eastern Palace, I had every single one returned immediately upon receipt. For those that couldn't be returned, I exchanged them for silver at the pawn shop to purchase medicinal herbs for Wanjitang's use, leaving no room for criticism. Sun Jiayu's hand injury grew increasingly severe. He finally managed to gather enough money to come to me for consultation and medicine. He must have inquired around and learned that the fee I charged was indeed almost non-profit, a price that couldn't be found elsewhere. I just never expected Madam Sun to have the audacity to come to my door, proposing on behalf of Sun Jiayu to take me as a concubine, so they couldn't hold back after all. My son is at least a top 3 scholar, while you're just a lowly stable girl turned maid. Now working as a healer who's touched who knows how many bodies, marrying my son would still be an undeserved blessing for you. If you take good care of him and keep the household stable, that would be your good fortune as a woman. Even with my usually gentle temper, I couldn't help but laugh in exasperation. Auntie, are you just worried you can't afford the medical fees if your son's hands have another problem? Mrs. Sun, caught in my exposure, immediately flew into a rage. Her flushed face mirroring the same spineless look as her useless son. You ungrateful little wench, our Jiayu is willing to take you in, that's an honor for you. Her vicious expression overlapped perfectly with the face that had tormented me in my past life, with old grievances and new grudges colliding. A wicked thought arose in me. Auntie, what good would taking me in do besides treating illnesses? Your son has his heart set on the Prime Minister's daughter. Marrying her would mean promotions and wealth from then on, with no worries in life. It's natural for young ladies to be reserved, and outsiders might be turned away. But you're an elder, surely their family wouldn't dare disrespect you. You must put more effort into this for your son's sake. Once the two families meet, an early wedding means an early start to good fortune, doesn't it? Mother-son listened thoughtfully and stood there in contemplation. She stopped making a fuss, so I didn't press further and turned back to continue working behind the hall. After sorting and wrapping the medicinal herbs for several households, I took advantage of the fine weather to air out the quilts from both my and Qingxia's rooms, fluffing them until they were soft and plump. By evening, Qingxia returned from her shopping, bringing back not just goods but also quite the spectacle. Sun Jiayu's mother suddenly went mad in the afternoon, dragging a matchmaker to the minister's residence gate to shout about arranging an early meeting between the two families to settle the betrothal soon. And guess what happened? Right at that moment, Qi Qinghan came out arm in arm with a man, and they ran straight into each other. Of course, mother-son didn't recognize the crown prince, so she immediately cursed them as shameless adulterers and rushed forward to slap them, only to be restrained by the residence guards. By the time Sun Jiayu hurried to the scene upon hearing the news, she saw her own mother being forced to kneel on the ground. Qi Qinghan, looking thoroughly frightened, nestled in the crown prince's arms. Having never entered the imperial court in this lifetime, he didn't recognize the crown prince either. Seeing the person he loved being embraced by another man, fury surged from his heart, and he swung his uninjured left fist to strike. Yet after all, he was merely a frail scholar. The crown prince didn't even need his guards. He knocked the man to the ground single-handedly. Sun Jiayu instinctively tried to break his fall with his right hand, immediately letting out a scream like a slaughtered pig. A physician in the crowd examined him briefly afterward and declared the injury beyond any remedy. Seeing her son humiliated, Madam Sun suddenly found inhuman strength, breaking free from the restraining servants to charge at the pair. How dare you hurt my son? I'll fight you to the death. Qi Qinghan couldn't dodge in time and was knocked to the ground. Blood unexpectedly appeared below her waist. A child not yet full term was lost just like that. Without a sound, Sun Jiayu's face turned pale, then flushed red. Having known Qi Qinghan for so long, he had never truly touched her. Now, the parentage of this child was all too clear. Madam Sun was so shocked that she immediately suffered an asthma attack, nearly losing half her life. Qingxia spoke with fervor. While I listened with a sigh, this world truly operates on the principle of retribution. Hanhe, do you feel avenged? I shook my head with a smile. It's fine, I really don't care about their family anymore. There's no need to go out of your way to gather news about them for me in the future. I have you all. That's enough for me, nothing else matters. Then we began discussing recent matters in the hall. We talked about how a certain young apprentice showed remarkable talent, and how so-and-so's daughter worked diligently without pause, who had provoked the strictest teacher into delivering a harsh scolding again. Yet it was also that same teacher who secretly pleaded for him after the assessment, securing him an extra 3 months to continue studying in the hall. We chatted until bedtime, then each retired to our rooms. Qingxia suddenly called out to me, her tone unusually solemn compared to usual. Hanhe, the director of Wanji Hall wishes to meet you tomorrow. I met the elusive director of Wanji Hall. To my surprise, she turned out to be a woman. She appeared to be in her 30s, commanding respect without showing anger. The master rarely receives visitors, so I couldn't fathom why she wished to see me. Suppressing my doubts, I bowed in greeting, dispensing with pleasantries. She came straight to the point. Would you be willing to serve as an official in the imperial court? I was startled and looked up at her. She continued, Hanha. You've been at Wanji Hall for half a year, working tirelessly day and night, far more diligent and hardworking than anyone else. I've looked into you. You were once a horse trainer, yet suddenly decided to come to Wanji Hall to study medicine. I want to know the reason behind this. The matter of rebirth is too astonishing to be believed. I dare not speak of it, nor do I know where to begin. After a long silence, I replied. I know a woman who lost half her body's sensation while saving someone and could no longer walk properly. She bore no great resentment, yet simply because she was a woman without power or influence, an involuntary marriage was arranged to fulfill the gratitude of the very person she had saved. It made people think this was actually an equivalent exchange. Outside, everyone only praised her husband for his noble character, willing to marry a mere crippled girl as his lawful wife. Yet all forgot whose fault it was that the girl became crippled in the first place. She became a living advertisement of flesh and blood. Her husband rode his good reputation to smooth sailing in his career, yet she was forced to remain confined within the household walls, dying of melancholy. The official listened to my words, remained silent for a moment, then leaned forward and began persuading me earnestly. Our dynasty's system of female officials is newly established. And this path is precisely at a time when everything awaits development. I can recommend you to become a palace physician. With your skills, you could rise through the ranks. A broad, smooth road lies entirely open for you to walk. Countless men would bow in reverence at your name. You need never worry about facing circumstances like those of your friend again. From now on, you could fully control your own destiny. Hanha, are you unwilling? I bowed solemnly once more to the steward. If I enter the palace, in 5 or 10 years, I might distinguish myself and achieve some success, but I cannot change the circumstances of most women. Besides me, there will be countless other women like my friend, trapped against their will, imprisoned by circumstances. Honorable magistrate, among the apprentices accepted by Wanji Hall, I've observed that those who burn the midnight oil, toiling tirelessly day and night, are mostly women, for if they cannot find a way out here, their only options are either to marry or to wander alone in distant lands, and these women who can sit within Wanji Hall are already among the fortunate few. In the common folk, there are countless women who cannot even touch the threshold of the opportunity to control their own fate. His ambition does not lie in high positions and great wealth, nor in fame that fills the world. I only wish for more women and the common people at the bottom to have the chance to decide their own fate. The scrutinizing gaze lingered on me for a long time. The chief officer let out a light chuckle, his tone noticeably more relaxed. I wasn't wrong about you, no need for formalities, have a seat. I took the initiative to request permission from the chief officer for an opportunity to travel abroad. She said no more, assigning 2 skilled medicine boys to accompany me, along with a female physician, to my quiet delight. The physician turned out to be the very same doctor who had treated me with acupuncture in my past life. Her name was Wang Xiu. During the days of packing, Qingxia asked me if I still wanted to hear some gossip about the Sun residence. I laughed and said, if you can't hold it in any longer, go ahead and tell me. She chuckled twice and told me that since old Lady Sun's asthma attack, she could barely manage 2 steps out of bed now. Qi Qinghan was pushed so hard she miscarried in public, leaving the Qi family utterly humiliated on all sides. Chancellor Qi then impeached the current Tanhua, 3rd-ranked scholar, in court for improper conduct, accusing him of openly engaging in inappropriate physical contact with an unmarried woman, thus bringing disgrace to the imperial court's official titles. The emperor found the argument reasonable and, with a casual wave of his hand, stripped Sun Jiayu of his Tanhua title just like that. He sold the Sun residence where he hadn't lived for long and moved with his mother into a haunted house. His mother, long confined to her sickbed, became a medicine pot, and the family's silver soon ran dry. Now his household had truly fallen among the paupers eligible for free treatment at the Wanji Hall. But life required more than just medicine. There was still clothing, food, and daily necessities to consider. Wanjitang could cover the cost of his mother's medicine and medical fees, but couldn't provide for his daily expenses. His life became increasingly financially strained. After listening, I sighed with emotion before continuing to wrap up and hand over the cases of several households I had been responsible for treating. Unexpectedly, overnight, rumors suddenly began spreading throughout the capital. It was said that the former Tanhua scholar Sun Jiayu injured his hand, which was actually my deliberate doing. The long unheard of Sun Jiayu also came forward to testify, saying that when I worked as a horse trainer, I had admired him and made countless advances that were unrequited. Thus, that day I intentionally startled the horse, hoping to harm his beloved through this scheme. Yet unexpectedly, instead of harming Qi Qinghan, it was him who got injured. That's why I panicked momentarily and fled to the Wanjatang to avoid the ensuing scandal. He shouted hoarsely on the street that Hanha later looked down on me because my hand injury ruined my future prospects. Even when my mother kindly went to propose marriage, she was driven away. Now she's so distressed she's fallen ill and can't get up. I didn't take it too seriously at first. After all, the Sun family's behavior and my past actions were common knowledge throughout the neighborhood. I don't believe these idle rumors can overshadow what truly happened in the past. Yet unexpectedly, the situation spiraled out of control. It was as if some hidden force was at play, unleashing a tsunami of rumors. The accusations not only targeted me directly, but also implicated the entire Wanji Hall, making us all objects of public criticism. Many families, as if afraid of offending someone, would rather squeeze out their meager food money to seek treatment and medicine at other clinics than dare to let anyone from Wanji Hall step through their doors again. Some elderly even stubbornly endured their illnesses, waiting for death. Refusing to let the younger members of their families invite anyone from Wanji Hall, I sat in the hall as the medicine apprentice handed me a note with a worried expression. It read, "The world you aspire to and Wanji Hall only one can exist. I refuse to let the entire Wanji Hall suffer because of me alone. Yet abandoning a dream that's within reach fills me with unbearable reluctance. I went to find Sun Jiayu. Wanji Hall is already treating your mother free of charge. Why must you push us like this?" Tears fell from his eyes. I had no choice. We still need to eat, to cover daily expenses. My right hand is completely useless now. There's nothing left I can do. That man was the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince. He said, he promised that if I did as he instructed, if I directed all the rumors toward you, he would give me enough silver and even secure me a sinecure to keep me fed and clothed. I had no choice. I was forced into this. I looked at him, silent and wordless. Suddenly his expression changed again, as he angrily declared all this was what I deserved. If you had saved me that day, none of this would have happened. I would have repaid you. No, I would have married you. That poisonous woman Qi Qinghan will have nothing more to do with me either. I'll spend the rest of my days well with you. The last shred of pity in my heart vanished instantly, without turning my head. I walked out of that dilapidated house. My plans to travel were temporarily put on hold. I continued seeing patients and prescribing medicine for the few households still willing to let me in, pretending nothing was wrong, turning a deaf ear to the whispers on the streets. The elderly woman I'm currently treating is a childless widow suffering from angina pectoris, which causes her tremendous pain during attacks. Neighbors sometimes remark that at her age, she's already lived a long life, and passing would simply be fate taking its course. Busybodies even mock her, saying she can't even manage 3 square meals for herself, yet she's so diligent about seeking medical care. Does she really think she can live to 100 like others? But I know the truth. This old woman has a sweet tooth, she said. In all my years as an old woman, I've never made decisions for myself. Now I just want more time to savor the sweetness I couldn't taste in my youth, every time I brought her sweets. She'd be so delighted her eyes would disappear into happy slits, stroking my face with a childlike grin. For that sweet anticipation, Granny willingly endured her angina. After the consultation, I left Granny's house. As soon as I stepped over the threshold, an egg struck my forehead. The egg white oozed out, emitting a foul odor. I looked up and recognized the father of a girl I had once helped enter the Wanjatang. The girl had just come of age and was betrothed by him to a butcher in his 40s. Hearing that the girl had been taken away by me, he ranted that the silly girl was too dim-witted to accomplish anything. When she gets kicked out of Wanjatang, he'll still marry her off. When these words reached the girl's ears, she was so terrified that she nearly lost her mind, collapsing from exhaustion multiple times. Left with no choice, I quietly told her in advance that even students lacking natural talent, if they found themselves in her situation, could still be secretly sent away from the capital through Wanjatang's own channels. She truly wasn't cut out for medicine, so early this month, the girl made up her mind and, with her modest savings, was escorted south by a specialized attendant. Her father, unable to find her, was forced to return the betrothal gifts and bore a deep grudge against me. Seizing the moment during this charge, while my vision was obscured by egg whites, he spat fiercely in my face. The crowd, like sheep that had found their leader, followed suit. Pelting me with rotten vegetable leaves picked up from the ground, the old woman inside suddenly stumbled out, raising her hands like a mother hen protecting her chicks, trying to shield me with her own body, even though her hunched frame barely reached my chest. Startled, I feared the situation might agitate her and hurriedly tried to help her back inside. She refused. Her dry, murky eyes could no longer shed tears, leaving only a faint trace of moisture at the corners. With all her strength, she screamed toward the crowd, "Hanha is a good person. the Wanji Hall are all good people. No one cared for me, I've suffered my whole life. But Hanha and Wanji Hall gave me a little sweetness. What are you doing? What on earth is going on here? What kind of world is this? I held Granny tightly in my arms, feeling uncertain for the first time in my heart. Perhaps I really should leave Wanji Hall. I shouldn't let these filthy matters affect more people in the hall. Some had just barely completed their apprenticeship, while others were striving desperately for their future. In this world, there are far more people who need Wanji Hall than those who need me. The crowd had dispersed at some point, and Qingxia and Wang Xiu appeared before me. There were also some common folk I had treated in the past. I remembered them, without exception. They were all solitary souls. I must have looked truly wretched, for even the usually carefree Qingxia had reddened eyes. I let them lead me back to the hall, and after being cleaned up, I went alone to see the head matron again. I tendered my resignation, saying I wished to leave the Wanji Hall. She remained silent, merely stepping forward to brush my hair, dislodging half a piece of vegetable leaf that hadn't been properly cleaned off. The long-suppressed emotions suddenly erupted inexplicably as that half piece of vegetable leaf drifted down. I choked back my sobs, only letting tears fall silently. The steward seemed to hesitate for a moment before reaching out to draw me into an embrace. At last, I could no longer hold back and burst into loud weeping. She patted my back, patiently waiting for me to finish crying, then said to me, "The households you were responsible for treating, you don't need to worry about them anymore. I'll find someone to take over and make sure everything is properly arranged for you. You can rest assured, for now, don't go out. Stay peacefully in the hall, rest if you want, or do something else, whatever you prefer. Hanha, as healers, we must treat not just the symptoms but the root cause. Some festering wounds must be dug deep to be thoroughly cleansed. You just wait." Dazed, I returned to my room and slept for days on end. Losing all sense of time, after regaining my strength, I sat on the bed for a long while. After pondering for several hours, I still felt I had to leave, while packing my belongings. The door suddenly burst open with a loud bang. Qingxia rushed in and hugged me tightly. "Hanha, you're all right, we're all right now. The crown prince has been deposed, hoarding private salt, selling official positions, bending the law for personal gain, wantonly taking lives." Memorials impeaching the crown prince piled up like snowflakes on the emperor's desk. The source of this shocking impeachment that shook the court and the public was the sudden appearance of dozens of young women's corpses overnight at the gate of one of the crown prince's private residences. Some corpses were reduced to bare bones, while others appeared shockingly fresh. All bore varying degrees of mud stains, as if they had been dredged up from a pond. Most crucially, one skeleton wore a hairpin that belonged to the missing beloved daughter of the Minister of Justice. Its design was utterly unique in this world. The crowd of onlookers grew larger, and somehow news of the hairpin spread astonishingly fast to the minister's residence. The elderly madam of the household, supported by her maids, hurried over in distress. Upon seeing the familiar hairpin, her eyes rolled back as if she might faint, but she managed to steady herself, determined to enter the courtyard and see for herself. With the crown prince absent from the estate and the minister's elderly madam looking as though she might collapse at any moment, no one dared to stop her, and so she witnessed the utterly ravaged lotus pond within. The bodies were indeed confirmed to have come from the crown prince's private residence. The Minister of Justice was the crown prince's man, having covertly handled countless shady dealings for him over the years, from minor criminal case files to major prison executions. He was the Eastern Palace's most effective and blood-stained blade in plain sight. Now he learned that the beloved daughter he had cherished like the apple of his eye had died in his own master's private villa. To make matters worse, he watched as his elderly mother fell gravely ill from the shock. The Minister of Justice was so enraged that he spat blood, and through the night, he compiled every single instance of the crown prince's reckless disregard for human life. The next day, in the imperial court, he tearfully and publicly denounced the prince, his accusations dripping with blood and fury, sending shockwaves through the entire court and the nation. The incident came so suddenly that the crown prince was caught off guard, crying out his innocence in court. The emperor ordered him to confront the Minister of Justice, yet with so many charges brought against him at once, every excuse he offered seemed to patch one hole while creating another. The crown prince broke into a cold sweat, but could only remain speechless for the moment. Furious, the emperor immediately placed him under house arrest in the Eastern Palace and ordered the Dali Temple to conduct a thorough investigation. When the wall starts toppling, everyone gives it a push. Many officials who had been suppressed by the crown prince now submitted memorials denouncing the Eastern Palace's crimes. Former allies of the crown prince, like frightened quails, fell silent one by one to save their own necks, terrified the next executioner's blade might fall on them. My case was filed among the records of the Crown Prince's abuses of power and forcible seizure of common women. Once the news spread, my reputation was instantly cleared. A crowd of commoners who had previously spat curses at me knelt outside the Hall of Universal Relief, bearing all manner of food and utensils. They said the Crown Prince had threatened their families, leaving them no choice. Qingxia didn't allow the gifts to enter, but permitted each person to come in one by one, letting them apologize to me face to face as they wished. After finally seeing off all the visitors, the head matron came to my quarters in person, with Wang Xiu following behind her. The last departing commoner brushed past them. Unaware of the official's status, he merely offered a deep bow of respect to the pair, repeatedly murmuring, "May good people be safe." The official nodded in acknowledgement before walking toward me against the light. A mutton-fat jade pendant hung from her waistband, glowing with a lustrous sheen. The bright yellow embroidery at the end of the ribbon was particularly eye-catching. In my previous life, when Wang Xiu was applying acupuncture for me, I casually asked, "Wanjitang itself generates almost no income. I wonder which capable figure is managing it behind the scenes." She merely smiled without answering. Yet didn't claim ignorance either. A year later, however, I heard news that the Wanji Hall had been raided by the authorities. It was said that some imperial relatives had used the Wanji Hall as a front to engage in shady dealings, amassing considerable ill-gotten wealth. The streets were chaotic for several days. Unaware of the reason, I finally stopped Sun Jiayu when he returned home, a rare occurrence, and learned the truth from him. He also told me that the raid had been carried out by the Crown Prince's men. I was lost in thought, wondering where Wanji Hall had amassed its wealth from. Such a house dedicated to saving lives and benefiting the world, even if it became somewhat wealthy, didn't it deserve it? Wang Xiu had treated me for so long and never accepted a single needle or thread from me. Perhaps remembering that I had once asked an unusual question, Sun Jiayu later brought me some other news from the imperial court. He said the court had finally decided on the candidate for the marriage alliance, Princess Jingzhu, the only daughter of the current emperor's elder sister. The princess had feared all kinds of beasts since childhood, yet now she was to be sent to the grasslands. The elder sister of the emperor was utterly unwilling, but affairs of state took precedence. Against the united council of the ministers, her efforts were as futile as a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In truth, that small borderland kingdom poses no real threat to our dynasty's military might, but the Ministry of War was under the Crown Prince's control, and a real fight would inevitably cause serious damage. Sacrificing a woman or waging a war, to some, it was never a choice to begin with. Princess Jingzhu was granted the title of princess and sent far away for a political marriage. Less than a month after the marriage, news came back that the princess had died suddenly. The eldest princess was heartbroken, using a white silk ribbon to join her daughter in death. In this life, because of me, the Crown Prince acted against the Wanji Hall ahead of time. At that time, he merely thought Wanji Hall was some organization run by common folk of high status, not taking it seriously as he casually provoked it, all just to force a powerless common girl to bow before him. Little did he know, the mysterious mastermind behind Wanji Hall was none other than the current eldest princess, Yu Tong. The Grand Princess had long been secretly gathering evidence of the Crown Prince's heinous crimes, but she had always lacked the right opportunity to light the fuse. This time, everything went so smoothly thanks to Wang Xiu. I asked curiously, "Wang Xiu, why?" The Grand Princess raised her hand in a gesture. Wang Xiu lifted her long hair and turned around, revealing to me the faint scar at the nape of her neck where it met her scalp. Wang Xiu is the missing only daughter of the Vice Minister of Justice. Whenever she meets anyone, she always disguises herself. The Grand Princess spoke while taking Wang Xiu's hand and patting it gently. She's a clever girl. As she grew older, she became increasingly aware of her father's wicked deeds throughout the entire mansion. She was practically the only one whose hands weren't stained with the blood of the innocent. When she first came to Wanji Hall to study medicine, she was already determined to leave the mansion someday. After completing her studies, she returned to the mansion for a while, secretly copying numerous pieces of evidence of the wicked dealings between the minister's residence and the Eastern Palace from her father's study. Then she faked her disappearance and fled back to Wanji Hall. This time, seeing your situation, she was so indignant that she devised this plan, using hairpins that could reveal her identity to pit the minister's residence against the Eastern Palace, allowing us to overthrow the Crown Prince so smoothly. I looked at Wang Xiu. Her face still wore that same untroubled expression. I grasped her other hand. I thought to myself, for the Minister of Justice to have raised his precious daughter so pure and untainted in such a corrupt environment, he must have given her an abundance of love. Such love nurtured a fine young woman who knows right from wrong, understands justice, and can make wise choices, yet it stubbornly grew in such a pool of mire. Her heart must have endured countless struggles and conflicts. In the end, between the debt of life-rearing and greater righteousness, she made the most difficult choice, forgetting self for the public good, forgetting family for the nation. She was an extraordinarily great person. By the time all charges against the Crown Prince were finalized, half a year had already passed, half the officials in the 3 departments and 6 ministries were replaced, while the previously obscure 6th prince quietly began making his mark in court. The Grand Princess remarked that the 6th prince was a promising young man, diligent and willing to endure hardship. Although he learns things a bit slowly, he makes up for it with a pure and sincere heart. However, he is truly inept at political maneuvering. In the past, he was so suppressed by the Crown Prince that he had no room to display his abilities, nor did he have many opportunities to appear before His Majesty. But fortunately, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, allowing him to muddle along safely under the Crown Prince's watchful eyes until now. The Crown Prince is guilty of several major crimes, each punishable by death according to the law. He pleaded hoarsely with His Majesty to remember their past father-son bond, yet under the watchful eyes of the entire realm, whether for imperial authority or the people's welfare, he was ultimately sent down the road to the underworld with a cup of poisoned wine. Without the interference of the former Crown Prince's faction, when the border tribes shamelessly demanded another royal princess for marriage alliance, court ministers unanimously declared these barbarian states unworthy of fear, petitioning the throne to dispatch iron cavalry and crush that land of petty troublemakers. The emperor consented. I petitioned the Grand Princess to allow me to accompany the army as a military physician. The Grand Princess untied the Hetien jade from her waist and gave it to me, saying that if I encountered any difficulties while away, I could present this jade pendant at any government courier station. Before departure, someone among the capital's populace, no one knows who, first realized, pieced together the truth by connecting the incidents involving the former Crown Prince, Sun Jiayu, Qi Qinghan, and myself. Thus, the residence of Chancellor Qi became the most despised place in people's eyes. Whenever the gates of the Prime Minister's residence opened, no matter who stepped out, they would be met with the mocking laughter and scornful glances of passers-by. The Qi family had initially shown allegiance to the former Crown Prince, which was why they tacitly permitted Qi Qinghan's series of outrageous actions. Now that the former Crown Prince had suddenly passed away, the Qi family exhausted every means just to barely preserve their own safety, leaving them severely weakened. Under the radiant achievements of the left Minister Zhai's family, the name of Prime Minister Qi had nearly vanished from the court's records. Qi Qinghan played a meritorious role in the disgrace of the Prime Minister's household. Prime Minister Qi, who had always treated his daughter as a commodity to be sold at the right price, vented his frustrations from external failures onto the inner courtyard. One careless day, he actually drowned his own daughter alive in a washbasin. Court officials were outraged by his beastly act and submitted memorials to impeach him. Thus, with an imperial decree from His Majesty, Prime Minister Qi was ordered to commit suicide, and the Qi residence was confiscated. Meanwhile, Sun Jiayu, amidst the scorn and curses of the crowd, left the capital with her mother. When they departed, all they carried was a small, worn cloth bundle, and so, all the personal grudges and tragedies that had played out in my previous life came to their final curtain. I gazed out the window, watching the golden sun sink behind the clustered buildings. The afterglow resembled morning clouds. The days with the army passed much quicker than expected. The barbarians there went weak at the knees at the sight of our iron cavalry, before the battle had even properly begun. The grasslands were already dotted with countless flags of surrender. The army remained there for some time to handle the aftermath. Accompanied by 2 guards, I wandered among the various tribes. I discovered that the medical practices here were even more rudimentary than in the most remote villages of our kingdom, with most itinerant doctors treating patients in a leave-it-to-fate manner. Yet the witchcraft interwoven with their medical techniques followed a completely different set of principles from the Central Plains medical system. With more combined applications, it can yield twice the result with half the effort in tackling many difficult and complicated problems. I sent a message to Wanji Hall, informing the eldest princess that I wished to continue wandering and exploring the grasslands. Upon learning this, the eldest princess still said little, only sending those 2 martial-trained medicine boys to accompany me. 2 months later, when the army returned to the border, I traveled across this land with the medicine boys in tow. I traveled while practicing medicine, learning along the way. Another half a year passed, and Wang Xiu also came to my side. She said that having spent her entire life in the capital, she always felt her perspective and horizons were limited, so she wanted to venture out and see the world. She also told me that under the 6th Prince's assistance, the capital now enjoyed favorable weather and peace prevailed throughout the land. Most common folk now live and work in peace, with fewer impoverished people, making Wanji Hall's role gradually indistinguishable from ordinary clinics. Thus, more and more masters in the hall wished to follow my example and venture to more remote places to broaden their horizons. You're an inspiration to everyone, Hanhe. Qingxia misses you too. She asked me to tell you that several new specialty restaurants have opened in the capital, and she'll treat you when you return. Apart from my daily medical practice, I occasionally helped deliver foals, which left the herdsman in awe. A little girl asked me in somewhat clumsy Central Plains dialect, "Sister, are all the doctors out there as skilled as you?" I smiled and replied, "Sister used to be a horse trainer, that's why I know how to do this," she exclaimed in surprise. "Can a horse-taming girl also become a doctor and save people? Then can I do it too?" I looked into her sparkling eyes. "Of course you can, but you don't necessarily have to be a doctor. What do you want to become yourself?" The little girl fidgeted nervously, clutching the hem of her clothes, and said she wanted to be the best cook on the grasslands. The uncles cook with rough and ready strokes, not like mother. Mother would tear the rabbit meat into strips, roasting each part with different heat, some juicy, some crispy. I love mother's cooking the most. She lowered her head somewhat dejectedly. But being a cook doesn't sound as useful as being a doctor. Doctors can save lives, while cooks just feed people. I crouched down and said to her earnestly, "People only go to the doctor when they're sick, but eating is something we do every single day. If the cook has great skills, they can make everyone who eats their food happy. 3 happy meals a day means a happy day. Happy days every day means a happy lifetime. So the person who cooks is also extremely, extremely important. Don't you agree?" She asked me longingly, "Can I do it?" I patted her head and told her, "Of course you can. We can become anyone we want to be."